the He Mistook her for a Swan emergency broadcasting system. Episode 17, and we are all jacked up on caffeine today. Hey everybody, it is episode 17 of the He Mistook her for a Swan emergency broadcasting system. Coming to you from Northern Ontario today. I got my cup of joe, I got my Java, I got my Seattle Speedball, I got my Bohemian Breakfast, my Yuppie Crack, my Rocket Fuel. I'm all hopped up on Java. And that's, we're gonna do a little coffee themed thing today. Remind you, it is 3 weeks to go until we release our album, so make sure you tell all your friends, hook up with us on Facebook, on the Facebook/HMHFAS, He Mistook her for a Swan. Just do it, all right? And we're on the Bandcampy thing, and we got our website. I've been rejigging the website, so I'm busy as a little bee. Anyway, it's National Aunt and Uncle Day. I got one of each left, and one of them is in a bit of a state. So call your aunt and uncle. I've been saying this since episode 1, I think. I mean, if you got them, call them. All right, they're great, mostly. Mine are anyway. I can't speak to yours. All right. Gavrilo Princip was born on this day, and I don't know, a long time ago. 1891, is it? 1894. Yeah. Serbian assassin killed the Duke Ferdinand, precipitating World War I. Just goes to show something. The law of unintended consequences, and maybe the rich and powerful should not be so smug. But anyway, we won't go there. So, we've been talking a lot about, all the different folk guys and, who really, the movers, the shakers, the great folk scene, the great folk scare, as Dave Van Ronk called it, in New York City in the early 60s. The same thing happening in England in the early 60s and go forward. And even here in Toronto the Good. All sorts of shit going on. So, one thing you notice about these, they got to have a place to play. And it always seems to gravitate towards a coffee house, usually in a basement. So, what the hell? Coffee houses, what is it about coffee houses that makes scrawny, gaunt men and women want to dress up in black turtlenecks and put on berets and play bongo drums, whatever the hell they do there? Or, what is it about the coffee house? It's the coffee house. It's just a little different than a bar, right? A little different than a bar. Bars, people imbibing alcohol and get all, get a bit goofy, which, Lord knows I love. Coffee houses a bit more of a place for conversation, debate, kind of a social leveling, people mixing, using Wi-Fi. I don't know. It's sad, actually. Walk by a coffee house, you see all these people typing away, writing their novels on their laptops and not talking to the person next to them. Used to be coffee shops were a place for talking, apparently. So let's say, okay. So take a couple examples, all right? So, Greenwich Village, 1959. Manny Roth, David Roth's uncle. Dig that. Finds an old horse stable down there in Greenwich Village. Takes a look at it, says, perfect. He goes in there, paints the walls black. It's got no floor. He spends his last $100 on some marble. Throws down some marble on the floor, and Cafe Wah, ground zero of the folk scene in New York City. There was lots of coffee houses and other places, the Bitter End, and all sorts of shit. But Cafe Wah, kind of the place. Bob Dylan got his first gig there. I think on a cold, stormy night, he walked in the door and played a set of Woody Guthrie covers. Remember Woody from Oklahoma. just a couple shows ago, and people went wild, and they gave him a gig playing harmonica after that. I guess the idea was just to give people a place to where they could get all hopped up on Java and hang out till 5 in the morning, which is what they did. So coffee houses, not surprisingly, late night spots, because you drink enough Java and you can't go to sleep anyway. You're all jittery and you want to stay up and listen to folk music all night long, and that's what people did. So, all the greats played there at the Cafe Wah. Dave Van Ronk. I mentioned Dave Van Ronk a couple of times, and maybe you don't know who he is, but he was kind of one of the movers and shakers, the elder statesman of the New York folk scene. If you've ever seen that Coen Brothers film, Inside Llewyn Davis, it's loosely based on his life, and not that loosely. It's based on his life, right? He wrote this great autobiography called The Mayor of McDougal Street. So that's a great book. You should check that out. It's pretty interesting. Karen Dalton, who we love, played there all the time. Jimi Hendrix, he had his band, Jimmy James and the Blue Flames. They'd play there 5 nights a week. Apparently, loud as hell. You could hear them all the way down to Washington Square. And they played like five sets a night or something. They just played and played and played. Apparently, it was great. I mean, I think that would be cool to see. So it is, one thing you notice here is that it's not strictly folk. They're mixing up R&B, folk. It's kind of early rock and roll, early rock. Not 50s rock and roll, but what we kind of call rock. Rock. You know what I'm talking about? We love to rock. Fred Neil, one of the great songwriters and influenced so many people, was kind of the MC there at the Cafe Wah. So he got to, say who goes and who stays. They had not just folk music, not just rock music, but Lenny Bruce played there. Richard Pryor played there, or did their performance there. So it was quite the thing. Anyway, so that's the Cafe Wah. So starting off in '59, going into the '60s. Later, across the ocean, a little later, around 1964, some dudes rent the basement of under a Greek restaurant, and they set up a little coffee house down there. Again, in the basement. What's up with the basement? They call it Les Cousines, but they don't call it that at all. They call it Les Cousins because they're English. Anyway, so Les Cousins, famous for its all-nighters. And Al, remember Al fucking Stewart? Al fucking Stewart was the MC there. He said one day him and his friends were just walking around and somebody said, let's check out this new place, the Les Cousins. And they did, and he walked in there, down this dingy staircase. The place was a fire trap, frickin' fire trap. Only one entrance apparently, and if it went up in flames, everyone would die. So he goes down there, and there's 12 people down there, but they're all intently around this performer on stage, and he looks, oh, it's Bert Jansch. Yeah, Bert Jansch, greatest guitar player in the world. So there's Bert. So anyway, Al takes over booking the place, and he can say who comes and who goes, and so all the greats played there. Bert played there all the time. Sandy Denny, Jackson C. Frank, another one of our heroes who we do in He Mistook Her for Swan. We do a bunch of his tunes. We do a Sandy Denny tune. Long John Baldry, Ralph McTell had a big hit, Streets of London. He played there all the time. Apparently David Bowie showed up one day and they said, no, go away. He didn't get to play. Poor David. Paul Simon played there. I don't know. Later on, John Martin. Remember we were talking about John Martin last time, and Nick Drake. John Martin was a real fixture there apparently, and they loved him. He was such a curmudgeon, but a funny curmudgeon. It was almost like the Ramones. Yeah, he'd play his set and he'd run out of songs, and then he says, "Okay, I'm just gonna play it again. You didn't think I'd have the fucking cheek to do it again?" Yep, he did. Nick Drake putting people to sleep there with his dreary tunes. Davy Graham was one of the biggest guys there. Davy Graham, haven't really talked too much about Davy Graham, but he was a little older than the rest of the guys. Not much, but he was a legendary guitar player. And he would, and a fantastic, like really fancy guitar player. Bert Jansch looked up to him. But a bit of a character. And apparently, he was booked to play one night, and the place is packed. Everybody's waiting. It gets to be like 12 midnight, and they're going, "Where is he?" He's notorious for being unreliable. And finally, people are like, "Where the hell is he?" And they hear all this rumbling, and down the stairs, boom, 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 comes Davy Graham. He's got a little Jack Russell Terrier with him, and he's got his guitar case. Pushes his way through the crowd, get the fuck out of my way, and sits up on the stage, ties up his little terrier to the to the leg of his chair, sits down, proceeds just to give some kind of slightly unhinged political speech for about 45 minutes, and people are like getting like a little nervous, like, uh-oh, what's going on here? He's not playing his guitar, he's just ranting. We don't like it. But then at the end of all that, he cracks open his guitar case and plays like the most amazing set you've ever seen in your entire frickin' life. Just like the craziest, most wonderful improvised guitar styles that you've ever heard of. Smacks down the guitar case, grabs his dog, and pisses off. I mean, it's the Les Cousins, in Soho in London. In the 60s, later on, John Martin was the main guy, and coffee houses. So, and then we haven't really talked about Toronto that much, but, Toronto in this area that they used to call Yorkville, which is kind of roughly bounded by Bloor up to kind of DuPont and Davenport. It's a little bigger range than what we call Yorkville today, but it had more frickin' coffee shops than you could shake a stick at, and it was a folk hotspot from the 60s on. Like, for example, like in 60 at Avenue and Davenport, there was the Village Green. Ian Tyson played there early on. I think somebody wrote up something. It says, one Village Green corner. The Village Corner, is that what it's called? Anyway, so he is Ian Tyson. He's a clean-shaved 24-year-old Vancouverite who makes folk singing his career, performing on Saturday nights in tight-fitting blue jeans and freshly laundered sports shirt open at the neck. He sings about feudal England, the Great Depression, Prism blues with a relaxed and easy manner. Prison blues, relaxed, easy manner. Anyway, so Ian and Sylvia playing there. Lightfoot played there in like 63. Murray McLaughlin was playing there. Around the corner on Avenue Road, the Purple Onion, Ian and Sylvia playing there. Reverend Gary Davis, remember I'm talking about the Rev the other day, the great mentor of all the New York blues guys. He played there. Lenny Breau, the great Canadian jazz guitar player. You find in these coffee houses that jazz and folk get mixed up. They live a reasonably peaceful coexistence. We'll put it that way. Mike Seeger and the New Lost City Ramblers. Remember old Mike, who I had my one and only guitar workshop with? And Lightfoot, Gordon Lightfoot, he's everywhere, in those days in the early 60s. Luke and the Apostles, there's some rock and roll. There's some great R&B kind of rock and roll. Playing the Purple Onion, the Penny Farthing on Yorkville Avenue. A bunch of bands, the Dirty Shames. It's Amos Garrett's band. Remember Amos? Amos, one of the great guitar players, Canadian guy, on Karen Dalton's album. See how all these things are tying together? We're going to make a sweater out of this yet with all these loose ends. The Sparrows, the pre-Steppenwolf, Little Joni Anderson played there in 65 before she married that Mitchell fellow. Yeah, before she moved to New York. Joni Anderson, Joni Mitchell. John Lee Hooker. Then back up at DuPont and Davenport, the Gate of Cleve. Who is this Cleve fellow? Any relation to our Cleve Anderson, I wonder? Mississippi John Hurt, John Lee Hooker, Sun House played there. And of course, Lightfoot. Lightfoot's playing all these places. Down on Cumberland, there's Charlie Brown's. The Ugly Ducklings play there. This is more of a rock place, but it's still a coffee house. Ugly Ducklings. I have been fortunate enough to to play with Dave Bingham in a Ugly Ducklings kind of configuration, and that was a great, great garage rock. That's Canada's great garage rock band, with Gaslight and Nothing and a bunch of other cool songs. There's all these other rock bands played the Charlie Browns that I have no idea who they are, but they have great names: the New Breed, the Shades, the Wee Beasties. I looked it up and there's some young punk band called the Wee Beasties. But no, this is a different Wee Beasties. These guys had like Beatle haircuts and stuff. I don't know. The Night Owl on Avenue Road. Apparently a famous jam there with Dominic Troiano and Jimi Hendrix and Whitey Glenn. That would be something to see. Yeah, but that was a little later in '68, I think. Yeah. Then over on Church Street, the Fifth Peg, Canada's most sophisticated coffee house. I don't know. Peggy Seeger. Bonnie Dobson. Remember Bonnie, the nice clean cut young Canadian lass who wrote Walk Me Out in the Morning Dew, and then Tim Rose stole her song. She had to sue him to get it back. Ian and Sylvia, Lightfoot's everywhere. There's all these places. The Clef Club on Schollard. Sylvia Fricker. That's Sylvia of Ian and Dyson. Sylvia of Ian and Sylvia played there in '60, her first gig. Let's not forget the Riverboat Coffee House. My name, my Riverboat Koch name. So everybody played there. My God, Joni Mitchell, Lenny Breau, Neil Young, you name it. All the Canadian folk heroes played there, and all the American, blues guys, John Lee Hooker, I don't know, Simon and Garfunkel, Tim Hardin, James Taylor, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, coffee houses galore. It's a little cold now. Black is my soul. Sometimes I don't mind it, as a little cappuccino. So that is, fluffy is my soul. So, yeah, coffee houses, God love them. But sometimes it's nice to have a beer. Anyway, so moving along from the folk scare of the '60s, Colleen and I are going to do another little song for you. So another little song from the deck, just getting you warmed up. We're going to try and do more and more of this, gearing up for our album release. So we're going to do Nottamun Town, which we've talked about before. And yeah, I hope you dig it. Hope everybody is staying safe and sane and out of jail. Don't mess with those ankle bracelets. They're on there for a reason. They want to know where you are. And just in general, let us know how the hell you're doing. Did any of you ever show up at any of those Yorkville coffee clubs? Love to hear about it, because I kind of missed it. But I know the names. And some there's plaques. There's plaques in Yorkville and stuff. It's a lot less satisfying than seeing John Lee Hooker in person to see a frickin' plaque. The Riverboat Cafe used to be here. Yeah, whatever. All right, here we are, Nottamun Town. Everybody stay cool, and we will see you next week. This has been episode 17. So long.
Okay. Yeah.